over the past 30 years, we have doubled the amount that we spend per pupil, with not many significant results of better test scores and things such as that. What I'd like to say is I'd like to see a reduced role of the Department of Education. It's significantly reduced, and that money that's spent on bureaucracy and administration should go back to the states to allow the states to innovate, which means, of course, more dollars directly into the classroom. Thank you very much.
Mr. and Mrs. Howell.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you for putting this on with Barron Drift, and congratulations on your 15th anniversary. Also like to recognize DJ Spiker back there, and I've gotten to know a lot of new personalities, and it's a pleasure to be here at Old Dominion University. The federal government, I think the first thing we ought to do is just look at the Constitution. The Constitution lays out the role of the federal government. There really is no enumerated power in the Constitution, whether it's Article 1, where the legislative branch has its powers, or Article 2, where the executive branch has its powers. There is not much in there about education, but the preamble of the Constitution talks about ensuring domestic tranquility and also promoting the general welfare. And I think there is a very important role for the federal government to help the state and local governments provide good, solid educations for our younger American generations for two reasons. Number one, being educated, it's a good in and of itself. It provides stability and productivity for our economy. The second reason I look at is the national security aspects of education. Education is the linchpin of productivity, and productivity is the linchpin of our economy. We're in a global economy right now. So I see a limited role for our federal government to look across this world, look at different global practices in education. For example, if the Chinese are turning out PhDs in engineering or nuclear physicists, I think we need to know that. We need to basically inform our higher institutions of higher learning as well, so we can remain globally competitive. Two of us on the stage actually went to federal service academies, so it's a little bit inconsistent for us to say the federal government has no role. I believe the federal government also does things in the educational realm that very few people realize. A lot of these national laboratories, a lot of these grants to some of our premier institutions to make sure that our technology and our scientists and all the things that we need to do for national security and in other realms, that we continue to be on the leading edge of producing the best and the brightest. And there's certain things that the state and local governments simply cannot do. They don't have the wherewithal to do them, and they just don't have the global reach to do them. So, by the way, I don't know about the timing right now. Okay. So I do believe that the federal government has a role under the preamble. I know we want to cut it back. I think the Department of Education must do a much better job, but I think it's far too important just to leave it to the state and local governments under the 10th Amendment reservation clause. Thank you so much.
Oh, and we're also pleased to welcome our fifth candidate, Jessica Salmon. Thank you for being able to make it through that nasty traffic in Hampton Roads. We do not have a traffic question per se tonight, but I wonder if maybe one of you might ask it. We shall see what maybe the federal role in transportation is. But Ms. Salmon, you will be going fifth here, and we are asking each question individually, so you'll have 3 minutes to respond, and if there's a need for a rebuttal, you'll have 1 minute. So Mr. Loyola, your thoughts on what the role of the federal government should be in K-12 and higher education.
Good afternoon, my name is Ben Loyola, and I'm running for Congress on both constitutional and fiscal conservative principles. I consider myself a Reagan Republican, and because of my constitutional conservative principles, I believe that the role of federal government education should be limited. I'm a product, and my success in America, because I was not born here, is because of education and the importance of education that my parents instilled upon me. I did very well through high school, went to Neal Academy, and as you heard Doug say, we went to a service academy up in Annapolis, Maryland, and I've served my country for 30 years. And the Department of Education, like Reagan talked about, I believe does not have a role in it. Education is local, education is city, education is community, education is state. If you look at what happens with our IRS tax dollars, it goes up to the IRS department and they take their cut with their 102,000 employees in their budget. Then it goes over to the Department of Education with their 5,000 employees and $64 billion budget. And then eventually it gets down to the state. And then eventually it gets down to the city of Norfolk, city of Virginia Beach, to right past the courthouse. And then they finally expend bills and pay for teachers and that stuff. You think of that $1 bill that went to the IRS and the pennies that are left by the time that long trail. The best and most efficient way for us to do business is for you to provide a product or service, and I pay you for that product or service. It's the most efficient way. And the more steps our dollar bills take, the longer it is. And wouldn't it be better, and how much more money would be saved and provided to teachers and science and laboratories and education and books and technology at the local level if it wasn't set to that whole long food chain? The Department of Education was started in 1977 by Jimmy Carter. And Reagan wanted to dismantle it because he knew it wasn't constitutional and it was truly doing a disservice. It's just a redistribution of money, and we must take a look at that, especially in light of this huge $12 trillion deficit. So I'm a product of this great education system, public school system, but public education is family, local, in cities and communities in the state. Thank you very much.
And the same. Yep.
Can you repeat the question one more time, Jim?
What role should the federal government play in K through 12 and higher ed?
Okay, in K through 12, right now we have the Department of Education, which was not called for in the Constitution, but I think is necessary for some oversight over the 50 states. I think education is primarily right now at the city level or the county level. I went to school in Arlington County, and that's where most of the decisions are made, but a lot of the decisions are made at the state level about curriculum. I know when I went in to talk to my child's principal a few months ago about some bullying that was happening in the school, she was more concerned about the math curriculum and invited me that if I wanted to help the school system, that I would actually contact the state and talk to them about bringing in a better math curriculum and not worry so much about the bullying, because even though there was a child in Florida who was being sodomized in a locker room by other boys with a broomstick handle, that nothing like that could actually happen here locally. I'm not so sure about that. Anyway, that's the state level. The federal level, oversight is very important. Not the level of regulation we have, but if you go to the Department of Education website, what they do really well is provide rubrics for teachers. And that's excellent. That's useful. That's a measurement for teachers as far as determining what children are learning. The other thing they can do is we can put teachers in the Department of Education. Instead of putting administrators, we can have teachers working there. Is that my time? I think we can go ahead and cut the Department of Education down. I've heard people say in half. I've heard people say in thirds. I'm not sure about that. There are experts that we can ask about that. But I think putting our really good teachers in there to provide oversight, stopping the testing at the federal level, but providing regulation, that is the role in K through 12. As far as higher education, I think that's also states, and states should encourage their students to come to their public universities and especially community colleges. Thank you.
Thank you. Would any of you desire to speak a little bit more on education? Seeing none? Okay.
We'll just follow up on it. We didn't have really a chance to introduce ourselves, and I think a lot of us owe a lot to this country for the opportunities it's given us. And my personal story is we moved to the district in 1966, and my mother was an immigrant. She's from the Netherlands, and she had to finish her high school in order to become a realtor. So she literally received her high school diploma 1 year before I did. I went on to West Point because it was free. It also gave me some other opportunities. If I had not gone to West Point, I'm not sure if I would have been able to afford to go to any college over here. I ended up graduating first in my class. It was basically just hard work. If it weren't for that, I think that I could probably be out there not following the path that I ended up following. So there are certain exceptions if you want to limit the role of the federal government, but I feel very strongly about education as a public good. And we can get into some of the Pell Grant questions, because I know that there's some controversy about how that's been misused by different institutions to make money off of young men and women without giving them the education they need. So I know there's a lot of issues related to that. We can talk about it in the Q&A. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Our next question is somewhat of a hodgepodge question from several folks, but they were basically asking the same thing. We are approximately